Welcome to the APMM Virtual Conference 2021. Many of you are extremely familiar with the Association of Professional Model Makers, but some among you are possibly being exposed to the APMM for the first time thanks to our inaugural virtual conference. To help you understand who we are and what we do, we'd like to share a short informational video to get you up to speed on the basics. So have a look.
APMM, get paid to make.
How does an idea get turned into a tangible object in the real world? The answer is simple. Model makers. Model makers are a diverse group of people committed to turning ideas into reality, whether new products, architectural mock-ups, prototypes, movie props, or digital models. Model makers can span the entire gamut from hobbyists to the pros. And the Association of Professional Model Makers is the only organization designed to connect professional model makers and create a network of shared knowledge and resources to help everyone create in the best way we can. The APMM was founded in 1993 and set out to provide a place for professional model makers in any industry to come together and support the profession through our combined expertise. Over the past 2.5 decades, the APMM has grown into an international organization with members across at least 5 continents and hundreds of major companies, universities, and independent model shops. Model makers can be found working at firms like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Boeing, Honda, Nike, Disney, among many, many others. Our members also represent dozens of educational institutions, equipment, material, and software suppliers, and touch nearly every industry that you could name. Because of this, our members have a breadth and depth of knowledge that is unparalleled when it comes to turning ideas into reality. As a member, you can benefit from this trove of knowledge via our forum, where we discuss materials, processes, techniques, suppliers, and help each other solve all of the unique problems we come up against. Additionally, we have a searchable member directory to help members connect. Beyond these resources, we have a network of vendors and suppliers that can direct you to specific products that can help you, and many provide exclusive discounts to our members. The APMM puts out a quarterly newsletter with interesting topics direct from our members, all of which are saved in an archive for members to access. Members will also be able to see job listings from across the community. The APMM even has a network of schools where you can get degrees in model making and start a career with industry-specific training. Shop owners and managers will have a direct line to students in search of internships or full-time positions, and student members will have an entire industry to approach when moving into their career. On top of all of these benefits, the APMM holds a biennial conference where model makers from across the globe get together for a weekend of educational workshops, roundtable discussions, industry tours, and access to some of the best vendors and suppliers in the industry, providing an opportunity to learn new things and meet other creative and passionate people. If you want to be part of this growing community, head over to modelmakers.org for more information and sign up to be a member today. We have membership options for every budget because our goal is to help you get paid to make. So why don't you join the Association of Professional Model Makers and be a part of how the world gets made? From everyone on the board of directors and your president, Jill Kennick, we are excited for you to join us for this excellent tour. In this session, we will be going inside the incredible Hagley Museum for an in-depth look at their collection of patent models spanning nearly a century. If you have any questions, a representative from Hagley as well as the APMM will be available in the chat, and we encourage you to discuss the amazing objects with the other attendees. The chat will be open until the end of the hour, and after the tour has completed, we will have open Q&A for the remainder of the time. And with that, let's go!
At first glance, what do you think this object is? Some guesses I've gotten are dollhouse furniture or even an electric chair. To be honest, the electric chair is a little bit of a closer guess. This object is actually a patent model for an 1871 electric vapor chair invented by Mary Hayward. This was actually an invention for health and wellness purposes, for things like rheumatism, blood impurities, colds, and skin diseases. This invention was also designed with a galvanic battery so that electrical currents could be applied to specific parts of the body. This chair would move into the box, the door would close, and your head would be sticking out. This invention was designed with metal plates along the inside of the chair and along the inside of the arms. There was also sponge, which you can see remnants of down at the footrest. This was included for comfort, but also to hold medical liquids that would be absorbed into the skin. The case confines the vapors inside so that they can come in contact with the skin. So, come take a seat with me and learn about patent models at Hagley Museum and Library.
Hagley is the former industrial site of the original black powder works of the DuPont Company, founded in Delaware in 1802 and powered by the natural resources that surrounded it. Today, it is 235 acres of wooded rolling hills along a rushing Brandywine River, dotted with hundreds of stone remnants of the black powder industry, dozens of restored buildings associated with the business, and the first DuPont family home built in America. Here, for more than 200 years, the DuPont Company and family experimented, innovated, and pursued the American dream.
Hey APMM, I'm Caroline Western, Curator of Collections here at Hagley Museum and Library in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm excited to give you a sneak peek into one of my favorite collections here at Hagley, and a little sneak peek into our upcoming exhibit, Nation of Inventors. Let's go. So what is a patent model, and how is it different from other types of models? A patent model was a specific type of model that was required by the Patent Office in the late 18th and for much of the 19th century. From 1790 to about 1880, the United States Patent Office required anyone applying for a patent to also submit a small-scale model of their invention. Along with detailed drawings and specifications, the patent examiners would decide whether or not your invention was wholly new and novel. If you were granted a patent tag would be tied onto your model with red tape. Rumor has it that this red tape is where the term government red tape comes from. Many inventors made their own models, while some hired professional model makers. Model makers and patent agencies would advertise their skills in places like Scientific American. These models were to scale and were meant to be of a convenient size. 12 inches square is a requirement that I've heard of, but I can't confirm that source. Some were much smaller, while others much larger. Models were made of a variety of materials, such as brass, iron, wood, and fabrics, and were sometimes beautifully decorated and embellished. In a time when some Americans were fearful of the evolution of technology in the 19th century, some inventors combined utility with ornamentation in order to ease the anxieties of Americans. No matter the way it was made, each model is material evidence of the inventor's pride and ingenuity. So now let's take a closer look at some of Hagley's patent models. Hagley's collection of patent models exemplifies almost every active industry in the United States in the 19th century. One of our favorite patent models here at Hagley showcases the beautiful craftsmanship and creativity of the inventive mind perfectly. This is a patent model for an improvement in boats for duck shooting, invented by Robert Bogle of Rock Hall, Maryland in 1857. Basically, the shooter would be secreted inside, literally bent over, and his legs would be protruding through these waterproof leggings. He could move himself, push himself through the water with these waterproof leggings, and once he was ready to take aim, he would pop up and shoot his fowl. The decoys on this model, in this case a few swans, could have been replaced with any other waterfowl that the shooter was trying to hunt for. On first glance, this patent model seems a little odd and whimsical. No one could have possibly used such a thing. But in reality, it was made for a very practical purpose. These patent models were truly works of art in their own right. But now let's talk about why patenting was so important. An inventor's reason for patenting in the 19th century was all their own. At the most basic level, the protection of intellectual property was paramount. A patent gives the creator exclusive rights to their invention. This means that no one else can make, use, or sell their invention.
In fact, some inventors assigned the rights of their patent to other parties, such as manufacturing companies. You can imagine that some inventors wanted to make it big, but we have to think about patenting at a very basic level. We get asked a lot whether or not a certain inventor was successful or not. Successful is a very subjective term. Perhaps the inventor considered just receiving a patent one of the greatest successes in their lifetime. I do not personally hold a patent, but I can only imagine the pride one feels when they receive that symbolic patent number. One of the biggest areas we see innovation happening in the 19th century is what some people call the domestic sphere. In particular, laundry-related patent models and laundry-related inventions were huge. People strove to create a more efficient process of washing clothes. If you can imagine, Hagley's patent model collection has over 80 patent models related to washing machines. How could this same basic invention be patented so many different times? It all comes down to improvements. These 4 washing machine patent models all did the same basic thing, but each one had one or more small improvements that made them wholly new and novel inventions. This patent model, for example, had a metal bucket plunger and a round circular tub, while this one had rollers hung radially to be spun around in a circular tub. This washing machine has a rectangular tub with a bed of rollers, while this washing machine has a lever that rises up and down to give partial rotary motion within the circular tub. The patented improvement was not always the whole patent model. More often than you would think, the patented improvement would just be one small part of the patent model. Take this reed organ, for example. This 1874 patent model is beautifully decorated, but the only thing patented on this beautiful patent model is this small lighting attachment here that was meant to illuminate the music sheets with candlelight. Whether your patent was wholly new and novel or just an improvement, let's learn about how the United States patent system was established in order to protect your patent rights.
Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution holds the provision for the protection of intellectual property. Early on, the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Secretary of War held the power to examine and grant or refuse patents. From 1790 to 1836, all patents were signed by the President of the United States. This patent, in particular, granted to John Nasro in 1797, was signed by George Washington, as well as Timothy Pickering and Charles Lee. In 1793, the laws are revised due to the busy schedules of the cabinet makers. The examinations are thrown out, and anyone who pays the $30 fee is granted a patent. They leave any disputes to the courts. It wasn't until the Patent Act of 1836 that examination is reinstated. A numbering system is also implemented, starting with number 1. Along with the establishment of a patent library, the year 1836 also brought along provisions for the construction of a new, grander patent office in Washington, D.C. Additionally, with this act, you could apply for an extension of 7 years on top of the 14 years granted for your original patent. And finally, foreign inventors were now allowed to patent within the United States. The application fee was $500 for British citizens and $300 for everyone else.
The Patent Act of 1836 allowed foreign inventors to receive United States patents. This playful patent model was invented by Constantine de Bodisco of St. Petersburg, Russia, and Pedro Diaz de Rivera of Madrid, Spain. Each of these slides was paved with ice and snow. The riders could ride an elevator or go up a staircase to reach the top of the hill. They could also attach their sleds to an endless belt with hooks, where their sleds would meet them up at the top. So now, let's slide on over into the history of the Patent Office, where these models would have been received and put on display for the public.
Early on, the Patent Office was located at Blodgett's Hotel in Washington, D.C. This was one of the only buildings left unscathed by the British in the War of 1812. It's rumored that the patent superintendent pleaded with the British Army, saying that the loss of all the patents inside would be a detriment to all humankind. However, in December of 1836, disaster did strike when Blodgett's Hotel caught on fire, destroying thousands of patent models inside. Congress deemed this a huge loss and appropriated funds for their reconstruction. Around 10,000 total were reconstructed. These models are known as the X patents. They're numbered according to their original date and given an X after their number to signify that they were patented prior to July 1836. The new patent office was to be located at F and G streets in Washington, D.C., and it had a few requirements. First, it had to be fireproof. It also needed to have the ability to grow with the patent office and its employees for the next 50 years. The new Greek Revival structure had 4 wings for offices and gallery areas to display the patent models. Did you know that President Lincoln held his second inaugural ball in the patent office in 1865? However, disaster strikes again in September of 1877. A fire on the first floor spreads quickly and destroys over 100,000 patent models. However, 27,000 of those were salvaged from the fire. Speaking of fires, this patent model is for a fireplace, and it's one of the X patents. Its number, 9489X, is a telltale sign that this patent model was involved in the fire of 1836. This model is made of iron, so it's very probable that it survived the fire of 1836 instead of being one of the reconstructed models. This patent model is for a rock drilling machine, and its patent tag gives a wealth of information, such as the patent number, the patentee's name, and the date that it was patented. But also, it gives information telling us that this model was taken from the debris of the fire of 1877.
Even before the fire of 1877, the Patent Office was struggling to store all of the patent models. The patent model requirement was officially ended in 1870, but the Patent Office still required them for another 10 years. Imagine this. In 1880, there were at least 200,000 patent models in existence. Eventually, the patent models are moved out of the Patent Office and into storage. And then, the decision is made to get rid of them altogether. The Smithsonian gets first pick, and then some of them are sold at a variety of auctions. In the 20th and 21st centuries, private collectors begin accumulating the models, either because of their love for a specific industry or just because they love the patent models themselves.
To symbolize the dispersion of the patent models, I wanted to share with you one of my absolute favorite patent models from our collection. This is an improved traveling trunk, and it's peculiar because of its cylindrical shape and these brass bands that are around it. These brass bands actually acted as wheels, so the person could drag it behind them, easily rolling it along. The inventor notes in his patent document that this trunk was extremely durable and that children could easily maneuver it. I really hope that we can all disperse on our own travels again soon. But for now, let's roll on over to learn about how Hagley became interested in the patent models.
Hagley's interest in the patent models started early in our life as a museum. Our interest stemmed from our desire to locate early DuPont models. Though none have been located, Hagley was bitten by the patent model bug and fell in love with these unique objects. In the 1960s, Hagley acquired around 600 patent models. Then, in 2015, we acquired around 4,000 more patent models, bringing our total up to around 5,000. Today, Hagley is home to the world's largest private collection of patent models.
Because we have so many patent models, we have the ability to tell so many different stories. Through the lens of the patent models, we can learn about what events spurred invention and innovation in the 19th century. There's no better example than the artificial limb patent models in our collection. There was always a need to create artificial limbs. However, the Civil War greatly exacerbated that need. Thousands of soldiers lost arms and legs, and inventors took up the challenge to create the best artificial limbs possible. We can see improvements in mobility and functionality by looking at the patent models. This one, while reminiscent of C-3PO, could easily be adjusted, and the ankle joint provided a more natural ankle movement. This limb had major improvements to how the knee joint functioned, for both above and below the knee amputees. So, now let's walk through and learn a little bit about who these inventors were. The United States in the 19th century was booming in industry and innovation. Hagley's patent model collection represents inventors from 41 different states, some territories, and foreign countries. Some of these inventors are very well known to us today. Think George Westinghouse, Thomas Edison, or Alexander Graham Bell. But in reality, a lot of these inventors in the 19th century were just normal people that you would pass along walking down the street. These patent models are our gateway into their lives. Without them, we might never have the opportunity to learn about the men and women that created them. This patent model is for an improvement in sugar evaporators invented by John Laney. John Laney decided to attach a tin-type photograph of himself to his patent model. This is the only example of a patent model we have that has a photograph of the inventor attached to it. This patent model is wonderful because we can immediately put a face to the name of the inventor, who would have otherwise been lost to us. With more and more records and images being digitized, we can really track the lives of these 19th century inventors through our inventor research project. Hagley's forthcoming exhibition, Nation of Inventors, will explore the landscape of 19th century invention and innovation in the United States. Through the lens of the patent models, visitors will learn about the patent system in the United States and the forces that encouraged invention and innovation. You'll recognize household names like Steinway, Bissell, and Beam, yet the majority of these inventors were everyday people. Nation of Inventors will allow visitors to meet these diverse inventors, such as women, Black inventors, and immigrant inventors, face to face. When you enter the first floor of the Nation of Inventors Gallery, you'll be led through the history of the United States patent process. You'll also be able to experience fully the diversity of innovation in the United States in the 19th century by looking at our Museum of Models, a large case filled with diverse patent models. You'll also be able to step into the patent office and learn about the patent process step by step. The second floor of the Nation of Inventors Gallery is where you'll come face to face with the inventors in the 19th century. You'll meet women, Black inventors, and immigrants who all helped shape the history of the United States through their innovation. As you progress through the second floor of Nation of Inventors, you'll also learn about large-scale events, especially the Civil War, which impacted invention in the United States through artificial limbs. Also learn about food preservation, the textile industry, and steam power. We hope that you'll come see Nation of Inventors when it opens later this year. But right now, I would love to give you a little sneak peek into some of our VIP models that will be on display in Nation of Inventors. This patent model is for an improvement in Capodastro frames for piano fortes, invented by Christian Steinway. Christian was the eldest son of Henry Steinway, the founder of Steinway & Sons Pianos. Christian Steinway worked for many years in New York City before moving back to Germany. There, he had a lab where he invented many improvements to the piano. He would send his notes and drawings to his brother in New York City, who would frequently patent in the United States for him. Another famous name you might recognize is John and Joseph Beam, members of the famous Beam distilling family. This was for an improvement in stills, which was meant to make very pure spirits. It was achieved by doing many evaporations and condensations within the body of the still. Melville Bissell invented this improved carpet sweeper and assigned it to his company, the Bissell Carpet Sweeping Company of Grand Rapids, Michigan. This improvement was equipped with elastic bands that went around the wheels in order to prevent the marring of furniture when one was sweeping. Now, let's hop on over to Ebenezer in his Objects Conservation Lab to learn about how objects like these would be prepared for Nation of Inventors.
Hi, my name is Ebenezer Kote. I'm the Objects Conservator at Hagley. I have worked here for nearly 33 years, so I've done most of the conservation that needs to be done here at Hagley. And I work on mostly three-dimensional objects, and I do the ceramics, I do glass, I do stone. I do all the metals, including iron, tin, lead, silver, gold, and all the alloys of metals that you can think of. Then I do organic materials, wood, leather, ivory, basketry, that kind of organic materials. Some time ago, you wouldn't go to a museum and expect to see synthetic materials there. They are not museum objects. They are so modern, they were not found in museums. Here at Hagley, because of our DuPont connection, we have lots of synthetic materials, and I work on them as well. So I'm also the conservator of synthetic materials, mostly the materials that the company experimented with, the materials that some of them, like things they didn't always manufacture some of them, but at least they did experiments with them. And we have the experimental materials and we have to preserve them as well. So all those things are here, including cellulose nitrate and some of the nylon things that they also invented. So that's what I do here. And my job mostly is to make sure that the collection, which is about 60 to 70,000 objects in the museum, is well preserved for posterity and is available for the future generations to enjoy and to learn from. How do I do it? There are different ways to do this, and I normally start by looking at the environment in the museum because everything that I've mentioned, the ceramics, the metals and organic materials, they react to the environment. And when you talk about preserving something, it is what happens to the object because of the environment in which you store it or display it or whatever you do in the environment. And the temperature, the humidity, the light, they all affect these objects. And that is where my work starts from. I have to make sure that these environments are museum quality environments for us to keep our collections in and to display our objects in. Of course, when objects come into the laboratory, they may have problems that I have to work on. They may be broken, they may have surfaces that are corroded, they may be, if it's something like synthetic material, it may be falling apart. Things like this, I have to find ways to stop. So I basically just do a diagnosis of what is going on with the object. Why is it corroding? Why is it falling apart? What's going on here? And then I'll come up with some method of stopping the deterioration process. And then whatever needs to be done to the object to restore it, I will do that to restore it. And then sometimes I will apply surface coatings that will preserve it for the future. One of my projects here at Hagley as a conservator is to prepare objects for exhibition. And I have done that for several exhibitions in the nearly 33 years that I've been here. And at this time, I'm also doing that for the Nation of Inventors, which will feature mostly 19th century pattern models. So what do I normally do when I have an exhibition coming up? Normally, the curators will choose objects that will tell the story that they want to tell in the exhibition that they want to. Then the conservator's job is to go look at the objects first and then decide whether or not they are stable enough to go into the exhibition, and also to decide whether or not they need to be worked on. So then they will bring them to me here and I will work on them and prepare them for the exhibition. When I'm preparing objects for exhibition, like models in particular, what I would normally do is first look at how stable they are for the exhibition. If it's an exhibition that is taken 2 days or 3 days, that's okay. Any object can go in and then we'll take it back out. If it's going to be there for 5 years or more, as Nation of Inventors is, then you want to be sure that the objects are stable enough to withstand an exhibition in the environment for that long. You also want to make sure that if it needs some work, if it's broken or if it's weak or in any way, then you want to repair it. And then you also want to worry about how to mount it in particular. Is the object going to lie down on the side? Is it going to stand up? Is it going to be hooked to the wall? And these kinds of things, the conservator has to decide all these things. And once I decide them, then I'll go ahead and do any work that needs to be done. How do I do these things? I will demonstrate with one object here that this particular one is an invention of an attachment to a reed organ. And when you look at it, you'll find that it looks like something is missing. And you're trying to understand the model and trying to understand how it works and everything. In most cases, I will actually go to the database and print out the document, the patent document, so that I'll be able to understand what this thing is supposed to do and what is missing from it. And then I will decide how to work on it. This is one of the objects that will be in the chain of inventors. And it's a cutoff valve for a steam engine. And this one was invented in 1854. It was brought to me to look at as a prospect for going into the exhibition. And I had to look at it and decide what to do with it. As you can see, it's in very good shape. It doesn't seem to have any cracks, it doesn't have any breaks. It's beautiful shiny brass and wood. In the middle here, you see steel. So we have three materials here: brass, steel, and wood. And I said earlier from the beginning that I work on metals, I work on wood, I work on several different materials. And therefore, this is something that I should be able to work on. I looked at it, it didn't really need anything. I might want to coat the brass with a coating that will preserve it so that it does not tarnish while it's on exhibition. And we have special lacquers for coating brass and copper alloy materials. We call it Incralac. And Incralac is an acrylic lacquer. It will preserve these surfaces for a very long time to come. The wood doesn't need anything, but you can normally wax wood and buff it, and it will look very beautiful for exhibition. The steel we normally coat with microcrystalline waxes, and that will also preserve it. So that would fulfill my part of preserving this object for the exhibition. But then I asked myself, is it going to be able to stand like this? It looks a little bit wobbly. So I want to stabilize it for the exhibition. And that is where a mount like this comes in. So this is not part of the objects, but it's something that you make to be able to stabilize the object with. You take this into the case, you stabilize it to the floor of the case, then you put this on top of it like this, and then that should keep it straight. That should keep it stable for the period of the exhibition. And that is one example of what I would do preparing the object for the exhibition. So in this laboratory, as in most objects conservation laboratories, we work on metal objects. For steel, cast iron, and some bronzes, we have three different ways we can clean objects. We can remove corrosion from objects. And this abrasive blasting machine is one of the ways we do that. In this machine, we use mostly glass beads as an abrasive, and it can do several things. Recently, we have retrofitted it so that we have this siphon unit here that will siphon the abrasive and keep revolving it, so that as soon as you use it, it's sucked back into the hopper and is recycled throughout the unit. We can also, as you can see, I have three different nozzles here, and I can do three different things. I even have a pencil nozzle inside here that I can use for cleaning fine objects. And so it's just one of three ways I will normally do things here. The other ways, of course, would include the use of, let's say, mechanical means like steel wool, or we can use steel wire. We can use scalpel blades just to scrape off corrosion and things like that. But we can also do electrolysis, electrolysis to remove corrosion from objects, or even sometimes apply chemicals that will dissolve will remove the rust. So there are different ways of doing it. I don't use this on copper or brass objects. because, well, if I have to, then I have to use something like walnut shells instead of glass beads. And this machine in particular is retrofitted so we can take different abrasives. One thing that I don't use in this is sand. I don't use sand in this machine, but glass beads, plastic beads, and walnut shells, we use them in this particular machine. Thank you for coming to visit the Objects Conservation Laboratory at the Hagley Museum and Library. Now let's take a look at 3 of the models that will be featured in Nation of Inventors.
Before we sign off, I wanted to give you an extra special sneak peek into an exciting part of Nation of Inventors. Bruce Rosenbaum, a steampunk artist, took inspiration from these 3 patent models you see here to create a retro futuristic sculpture. The Velocipede time machine will incorporate elements from each of these 3 patent models: a velocipede, a steam governor, and an electromagnetic motor. Now, let's head to Massachusetts to meet Bruce Rosenbaum and learn about his creative process.
Hi, I'm Bruce Rosenbaum. I'm the founder and steampunk reimagineer of Modvic. My company does steampunk art and design. And what you see behind me is a Velocipede time machine. And it was a few years ago, I was approached by the director of the Hagley Museum and Library in Wilmington, Delaware. They had come into a collection of 5,000 plus US patent models, very rare, and they wanted to create the world's first permanent US patent model museum. And they're calling it the Nation of Inventors. And as part of the creation of this new US Patent Model Museum, they wanted to do something really artistic and creative and innovative for the lobby space as you enter the museum. And they thought, wouldn't it be cool to do this really great inventive art installation that was inspired by the US patent models. So they gave me a call, and I thought, well, what would be really a great way to tell the story of invention and innovation, which was this country's kind of tour de force in the midst of our industrial revolution, and giving incentives to inventors to come up with these ideas and actually create during the mid to late 1900s, to the mid to late 1800s and early 1900s. So I came up with this idea of looking at their patent model collection, and was inspired by a few that I thought would be perfect for a steampunk kinetic art installation for the lobby. So I ended up looking at a patent model that's called a velocipede. A velocipede is an early bicycle. It can either be 2 wheels or a tricycle, 3 wheels, or a monowheel. Monowheel is this vertical kind of wheel that you can step into, and there's a mechanism to steer it and to drive it forward. And as part of what I do in steampunk design, I fuse history plus art plus technology, and using the kind of invention process to come up with ideas, concepts, and then design, and then fabrication. So I came up with this idea of using the velocipede, this kind of monowheel design, but creating this time-traveling kind of contraption by incorporating a horizontal wheel. And part of the design was that we were going to kind of be able to create a time-traveling machine and use a mannequin, which I call a Hue machine. Hue machines are these representations of these figures from the Victorian period, famous authors and inventors, where they come back as the machines that they either wrote about or created. As H.G. Wells could come back as his own time machine. So I created my own time machine, the Bruce Hue machine, which I don't know if you can see the resemblance, but that represents me in the time machine. And so I worked with Sam Ostroff, who is the owner of Salmon Studios. That's where we are right now. And Sam and his crew took some of the concept drawings that we had put together and did CAD designs. I came up with some really interesting period objects, artifacts, as part of the fabrication, and so that's what you see here, is our Velocipede time machine coming together. As part of what is the excitement for the new Nation of Inventors, I wanted to show the process of what it's like to kind of invent and build a model, a US patent model, and the real thing. And so we kind of worked in reverse, because we came up with the design on paper and then we started to build this. And I said, okay, well, now let me kind of, this is the full-scale model. Maybe I'll come up with a smaller, 12-inch scale model. And that's what I did. So using sewing machine parts and pieces, other kind of mechanical parts that I brought to the model. It doesn't look exactly like this, but it's inspired. So, and I think that's the way that the invention process kind of works. It can work from opposite directions in terms of the concept and design, or it can happen organically as you're starting to build and you're starting to see it come together. You have ideas in terms of how you can improve it, or how you can kind of redo or repurpose these objects. A lot of times what I'm doing is I'm looking at the object, I'm looking at what I'm trying to build, and that can influence each other in terms of how it actually comes together. So as part of what I did for the model also was to come up with some major kind of inspirational pieces, and then finding things around my shop and just thinking through kind of what things can be. The three inspirational patent models that I took from the Hagley's collection was the Velocipede. The second was governor balls. So the governor balls are part of a steam engine where you have the balls coming down, and through centrifugal force, these balls kind of revolve around, turn around, and as the steam builds up and the engine goes full steam ahead, the balls kind of come out. Thus, balls to the wall, that's where that term came from. And when the balls are total horizontal, that is where the steam engine is at full power. So as you can see here, we have governor balls as part of the Velocipede time machine, and those are operational. We can actually, we'll actually have those move. And then the other patent model was an electric dynamo, an electric motor. And we're building that into the design of this Velocipede time machine, the kind of the full scale model. And we've also, I actually used late 1800s electric dynamo motors for the smaller scale model, building it into kind of the wing design. So it's all kind of fused together of the past, the present, and the future. So we used a lot of modern techniques and a lot of fabrication in the shop. We have modern CNC machines, bending machines, along with some traditional ways to make some of the pieces, blacksmithing. And so it's this combination of the old and new that I think is very kind of unique to what we're doing. And also in terms of the pieces that we're using here, the chair that the Hue machine in is an early 1900s dentist chair, along with some kind of dental equipment here. The handles there are an old 1890s bicycle handles. safety standard bicycle handles. And so if you take a look around, you'll see this kind of mixing of the old and new. And as part of what I'm doing with the creative process, the creative problem-solving process, is what's called Januszian thinking. Januszian thinking is opposite thinking or divergent thinking. So it's taking, you've got your problem in the center, and then you come up with two opposite solutions and kind of fuse those together. You synthesize the solutions to create the solution to the problem. And a lot of the design with steampunk art is about Januszian thinking or opposite thinking. So there's a lot of, so the story of being able to come up with this idea and then going to designing and building a model is the story of our country and the nation of inventors. So as part of the invention process, a lot of the inventors, this was in the late 1800s or early 1900s, the US Patent Office required a model. So now the US Patent Office just needs text and drawings, but it was prior that an actual physical model needed to be built, because the patent office officers wanted to actually see it work in kind of in a micro scale way. So there was great engineers and craftspeople, really tradespeople who could create these little salesmen, working models of the inventions, and they actually worked. They moved, they did whatever they were supposed to do, and they're incredible to kind of see now, to have these working models, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with our Velocipede time machine. I kind of wanted to create something that was really intricate in design and would show off kind of the ingenuity of what this invention was going to look like. Again, it was in reverse, because we started with this and then I went to the smaller patent model. But the idea was that I was going to kind of take the idea of a Velocipede time machine and kind of create this working model of it. And I think most of the patent models, they had to be under 12 inches, like a 12-inch footprint, because the patent office didn't want to, have thousands of these things taking up room. And ultimately, what happened, there was a fire at the patent office. A lot of these did get destroyed in the fire, but there were quite a few still left over and became collectible. Fortunately, there was a collector, a Rothschild, who was able to kind of get a lot of these in his collection, and then the collection was donated to the Hagley, so these are now available for part of the museum. So I feel very honored, again, to be able to be part of the Nation of Inventors and show that it is about science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Thank you so much for allowing us here at Hagley to give you this special sneak peek into our patent model collection and our upcoming exhibit, Nation of Inventors. For now, check out our website, www.hagley.org, to learn more about the upcoming exhibit, as well as our online collection to see many more patent models. Stay safe. See you soon.
And now on to the Q&A. If you haven't already, head over to the chat, either to your right if you're viewing on a desktop, or below if you're on a smartphone, and join the discussion with the presenter and your fellow model makers. When you are ready, or after the session ends, you can head to the APMM Zoom meetup for further discussion or general information from an APMM representative. This Zoom meetup will be open all day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For future sessions, head back to the conference schedule page for dates, times, and the appropriate link for each session. And as you discuss, we want to thank the companies and individuals that have supported the APMM and our conference efforts with their donations after we had to postpone our in-person conference last year. Your support means a lot to this organization, and it helped make this conference a reality. Find the names of our amazingly generous conference donors on the screen now. Thanks for coming to this session. We hope you enjoyed it.